Hi everyone, happy Wine Wednesday. I'm Kelsey with the Curious Vine Collective. And last week we kind of wrapped up our 4-part series on food and wine pairing. But I did have a few just key things to think about when food and wine pairing that I wanted to go over today before we wrap it up. And also one of the elements we didn't discuss was umami in food and how that affects wine. And I'm actually going to go over that for the next cookbook club video for the April cookbook. So stay tuned for a little more information on how umami in food affects wine. So number one with food and wine pairing, I just want to reiterate, most food makes most wine better and most wine makes most food better. So don't be afraid to try things. It's usually going to work out in a great way. The other thing is food has a greater impact on wine than wine on food. So what I like to do when I'm testing a pairing is to take a sip of the wine first before trying the food, then taste the food, then go back to the wine and see how that food has affected the wine. And that's gonna be a good gauge as to whether or not this pairing is amazing, or maybe you wanna pick a different wine to go with the dish. The third thing is to take into consideration the intensity of the flavors in both the food and the wine and try and match intensity. So if you have a really rich, flavorful dish, you want to pair that with a wine that's got a little bit more going on, a little more oomph to it. And I also want you to consider all of the elements of a dish and especially pay attention to sauces. So you might, let's say, have a lighter pork dish, but if you're putting barbecue sauce on that, does the barbecue sauce have sugar to it? Is it a little bit sweet? Is it a little bit spicy? Those kind of flavors are going to be really important to pay attention to when you're choosing a wine to go with that dish. And I did get a question about this from last week, the difference between sweetness and fruitiness in a wine. So consider that sweetness is actually talking about sugar. So this is usually going to be residual sugar that's left over from the grapes themselves. So when fermentation is happening and the yeast is eating the sugar, creating the alcohol, that can be stopped before all of the sugar has been eaten. So there can be sugar left in wine, and that's what we're referring to when we talk about wine with sweetness. Now, a wine can be totally dry and have absolutely no sugar left over from fermentation, but still be fruity. So fruit-forward wines are definitely something to pay attention to when pairing. They might not have any sugar in them, but if you think about how an apple pie would taste if there was no sugar in it, you're still gonna get those flavors of the apple front forward, even without the sugar. So those are the differences when we're talking about those terms, sweetness versus fruitiness in a wine. So I hope that answers all your questions, and thank you so much for coming on this food and wine pairing journey with me. Cheers, everyone.